You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back.
Hello and welcome back into my wheelhouse. It is February 11th. It's the week of All-Star Weekend in Charlotte. That'll be starting, I think they do the first events on Thursday, even though they don't really matter, but we'll have the dunk contest and stuff like that on Saturday night. Maybe we'll pick some winners at the end of the show for that. But we're going to recap a busy weekend and week in basketball as expected. Obviously, the trade deadline passed at 3 p.m. last Thursday. More fireworks than your usual trade deadline if you include or don't include the Porzingis and other deals that led up to it. A lot of other things to get to. Ben Simmons shot a three-pointer, attempted a three-pointer.
Was it end of quarter, end of half?
No, it was 20 seconds left in the shot clock. He dribbled into it. He shot it. He almost made it. It rattled in and out. And his form looked okay.
He's been working on it.
I bet you he makes one.
I think I would have liked to see him try one from the elbow first.
I bet you he makes
Kind of
one
work his way back.
before the end of the season. He's going to make a three-pointer before the end of the season. It's also the one-year anniversary of Paul Pierce night. Longtime Celtic hero, doing great in media. Like to see what he's doing. You got a quick.
Oh
minute
yeah, well
story
it
on Paul
was
Pierce?
him and Chauncey Billups doing a commentary, and however the conversation went, Paul Pierce goes, they were getting on guys asking to be traded, and Pierce was getting on guys like, you can't ask to be traded like AD did, and Chauncey looks right at him and goes, you asked to be traded from the Celtics, and Paul Pierce goes, I never asked to be traded from the Celtics, and Chauncey goes, who are you kidding, Paul? You asked to be transferred from Kansas when you were in college, and then you asked to be traded for the Celtics from the Celtics. And Pierce just kind of slumps like, I guess you got me.
It's like the truth guy handed the truth.
Yes, that's right.
And Chauncey's like that, boy. He really.
Yeah, we can spin away.
That's pretty wild. Oh.
All right, so start with the trade deadline. We're going to do three losers in terms of players that maybe their situation looks a little bit more grim after some shuffled decks, or maybe some people left their side. Who are your three losers for the deadline?
Well, I think the big loser is Anthony Davis.
He's on my losers as well.
He just got to be. I mean,
Unanimous.
he couldn't get to the Lakers. Now he's found out that he's probably not going to get to the Lakers in 2020, so that's a negative. The fans are booing him. The media hates him now. They're all against him, and he's stuck and he's got to play.
Right.
And they don't really want to play him. I think he's definitely
Clear loser.
They booed him at the start of the game. I don't think they were booing him when he was going 11
No.
of 13.
The booze definitely softened as the night went on.
And would they be playing him if they weren't going to get fined $100,000 a game if they didn't play him? But anyways,
That's interesting. We can bleed into that a little bit. I think that they absolutely have the right. He has the right to request a trade, even though he gets fined for it because it ended up being more public than it was supposed to. You can request the trade through back channels and not get fined to it. He just chose to have Rich Paul's name on it and have to choose the fine to happen. So why can the team not choose to sit him down for their better interest? It benefits everyone. It benefits Anthony Davis. It benefits the team.
The fan and the people who are paying
Shay, from an AD brand perspective, from a PR perspective, he didn't read that he had a tremendous profile, and across the league, the respect from fans and everything, and that's taken a big hit.
It has.
So that's where he failed.
What are your losers?
Go ahead.
Well,
Do one at a time.
was definitely up there.
One at a time.
My other losers. Markelle Fultz.
Markelle
He's
Fultz.
Fading into obscurity down in Orlando. Who wants to end up in Orlando?
There's a spot there for him if
I
he
could
can
not
play.
disagree more. I
Me
think Markelle
too.
Fultz is an absolute winner of this deadline.
I was putting him on my winners too.
Here's the thing, though.
There's a
as far
spot
as
there
his
for him.
legacy is concerned, as a first pick of a draft, and he's played 33 games, started 16, and his career high for the Philly Sixers was 16 points.
But doesn't the
This is
deadline
not
put him in
a
a better
good start.
position?
Exactly.
The deadline puts him in a better
Is
position.
the NBA trade
But they
deadline
don't
not
have
a
a
win
point
for
guard.
Markelle Fultz? It's a win for Markelle Fultz. Overall, his career is a failure so far, obviously, but that's not what the point is. That's not the framework of the discussion is. It's how his career trajectory moving forward or his current
on the
situation moving
deadline.
forward based on the past couple days has either improved or declined. And I think it's drastically improved. He's moving to a team that has a desperate hole at point guard where he not only can have taken his time to get back, but when he does come back, the expectations are going to be a lot lower.
Yeah.
The speculation is going to be a lot less intense.
Yes.
And the overall, just the cameras and the media, all that circulation is going to
I'll
be
give
far
you
less
that,
severe.
But as far as his legacy is concerned,
Yeah.
what are we
He may actually have to be able to implement a non-shooting game like Simmons did.
Yeah.
If he's at the point, it's not going to be the same pressure on him to have to hit shots. He may be able to do it with his ball handling
That's
ability,
exactly
and his
another-
penetration ability.
Another fantastic point, which I think
we've
considers
seen
him a
plenty of
winner,
that.
is even if he doesn't fix his shot, it's so much more likely that he'll be able to succeed as a player in Orlando than he would be able to succeed on the Philadelphia 76ers supremely because they have Ben Simmons already.
Yeah.
We saw why that couldn't exist and why they couldn't succeed together. Having two players that are that distance challenged in terms of their jump shot arsenal was detrimental to a team offense. And we saw sparks of him being able to succeed in the second unit. It was just too far and few between. But now on the Magic, he can go into a team, if they surround him in a lineup with Vucevic at the 5, a stretch 5, if they bring him back next year, if they have Evan Fournier and Terrence Ross and they have a bunch of shooters out there, it won't matter as much if he can't shoot. I think this is a huge win for Markelle Fultz.
All right, well, I'll give you that. But I just think as far as legacy is concerned,
Yes.
if a contender has to get rid of you, I think you're a loser. And
I really look forward to seeing him play.
I think he's one of the
Can he play?
biggest duds.
No, he's probably not going to play this season.
Okay.
One of my losers, we'll do one at a time. One of my losers is probably another controversial loser, but my loser is Marc Gasol. I think that Marc Gasol is a loser of this deadline because even though he goes to a situation that is going to be more competitive, is going to be contending for potentially a finals berth, I think that this situation, in comparison to the other big acquisitions for teams that are going to be contending late into the season, is much more tumultuous, and they need to change more to fit to his game than the other situations do to their respective players. I think that it's going to expose Marc Gasol to be a little bit more aged than we were expecting. I think his motivation is absolutely going to increase because it was definitely at a low level when he was in Memphis. But I think we're going to begin to see a player that's around the hump a little bit at the age of 34 that's going to struggle to run fast in these lineups that include the Van Fleet, Lowry, Pascal Siakam, OG, and Kawhi. This team has upped their pace in the last year, but Gasol has proven to not be able to handle faster paces. I think that there's going to be games that he probably comes off the bench, and I think that his fit isn't going to be as solid as a lot of the other acquisitions are.
Are you saying that Jonas Valanciunas was fast?
No, but
Because
I'm saying he was only playing 18 minutes a game, and what I'm nervous is they're going to bring in Marc Gasol, and they're going to try to play him in a similar role to Valanciunas as who can just stretch
But what
the
we've
floor.
seen so far, Shay, is that they're going to bring him off the bench.
Well,
And they're
yeah,
not
but
going
I
to
don't
mess.
know.
Well, that's what we've seen
They'll
so
play him a
far.
little bit with
So far,
Serge
he
at the
came off the
floor.
bench the first game.
Right, but he only
And-
played like 10 minutes.
But and where I think that he fits really, really well is endgame. I think endgame, at the end of the endgame, when he's in there in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, it really changes the approach that Kawhi will have on the floor. Kawhi becomes such a more dangerous weapon with Gasol out there in the last 3 minutes of a game than he does with Ibaka out there. I just think, as far as facilitating,
Well, that's it. If he's in the game, that means Ibaka's probably on the bench because you're not going to bench
Yeah, but
Pascal,
Ibaka
and
gets to play a
Ibaka
lot.
offered. Oh yeah, Ibaka offered.
he starts.
A
my
higher,
thoughts, he
I think, a
starts.
higher defensive upside. Even though Gasol's a former Defensive Player of the Year,
He's not
I
anymore.
think he's not anymore, and he's obviously lost a step on that end. I think Ibaka offers a higher
Tremendous
end
passer.
in some aspects, especially since of up and down, than Gasol offers. Obviously, Gasol's a better player, but I think in terms of fit.
Shay, even going to the playoffs, where the game changes a little bit and it's more of a half-court game, I think Gasol really fits this team, and I think his passing really mixes with Kawhi really well.
I think so, too.
The other thing is they didn't give up very much to get him.
No.
Yeah, he's got a high basketball IQ. Valanciunas was not coming back to this team, and Gasol probably won't come back to this team either. Who knows? But he does have
they only
very
give him-
good passing acumen. He's got the smarts to close out games with them. I don't think he's going to play 20, 25 minutes, but he's going to be a good addition.
I think he's going to play more minutes than that, and I think it's not going to be as successful as he wants in terms of Marc Gasol. They're still going to be a top 3 team. I'm not saying that
They're a better team with him.
Yeah, but I'm saying in terms of him, I think he's a loser. I think that his image is going to decline. I don't think if the Raptors succeed, it's going to be because of him. I'm seeing that he, specifically Marc Gasol.
So you criticize me saying that Fultz was a loser to go to
Yeah, I don't like that
an
team.
obscure team, and then you say that Gasol's a loser to go to a frontline contender.
Yeah.
He was on a crappy team in Memphis.
Well, they're not
and
winning. They're not going to win a championship.
We'll see.
What is he gonna win?
Toronto's definitely a contender.
I think it's exciting.
Who's your
Well,
second
on
loser?
the flip side, I
Your
think
second
Conley really took a hit because
Conley was my third loser.
Really, I mean, there's that guy left at 31 years old. He ends up stuck. So I look at that as a real negative, and I like my Conley a lot.
The demand hasn't been high for point guards, and we've seen that it's been
No,
very hard for teams
and I
to
was
trade
thinking,
point guards.
with all of the other discussion on the board, I was thinking, man, I wouldn't mind having Conley and Gasol on the Celtics, and in terms of the problems that they're having, and that's another big discussion that we'll have. But I think Conley could have found a home out there, except for those contracts.
Who's your final loser? No, we'll spin away.
Well, a guy that I like, but he's kind of went to another crappy team, Thon Maker.
Yeah.
Because he went from.
What's to like on him anymore, though?
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. I kind of like his personality. He's kind of a crazy
You
guy.
like the drop kick?
He punches with
Yeah,
his knees.
yeah, he's an interesting fighter.
Yeah,
but yeah, he had a chance at an Eastern Conference title with Giannis, and
As an
I don't
afterthought.
think he was enough of a three-point shooter. I don't think he was a good enough three-point shooter, and he's not tough enough to rebound. So he just didn't.
we'll
He didn't make the cut.
We'll
so
see if he gets minutes over Zaza in Detroit.
Yeah, really.
Spin the wheel.
LeBron's a loser too.
Buyout candidates. Since we've had this topic on the wheel, there's probably been people that have been claimed. People that got dropped by teams in the past week that'll be available basically immediately. Ellington and Wesley Matthews already found new homes in Detroit.
Is Ellington actually signed?
Yep,
With
Detroit, $2.4 million, and Wesley Matthews to
That's the
Indiana. We also saw, I believe there was one other one, but I forget who it was. But there's some not huge names, but big names on the buyout market. There's always serviceable names. Enes Kanter, Marcin Gortat, Markieff Morris, who is dealing with a neck injury, Milos Teodosic, Cashby, Ben McLemore, and Robin Lopez kind of headline this group. What guys do you think would be good additions for certain teams? Could you see the Celtics targeting any of these people? And which ones do you think are just most likely to probably find a home?
I like Enes Kanter. I think he's a tough guy. He rebounds
For who?
unlike anybody on the
For who?
Celtics.
He's a
The
rebounding
Celtics.
machine.
For the Celtics. We cannot rebound the ball. It's consistently hurting you in second halves where you're chucking up three-pointers and nobody's underneath the basket. And he's tough. And he's a veteran. I think he would be a good addition.
He's a sieve defensively.
Yeah, that's the problem.
I'm with you. What you're saying makes sense. It's just I don't think he.
I'm just so sick of it whenever the Celtics shoot under 30% in a quarter from three, it seems like we just get lost in games.
I also think that
no rebounds at all.
I think that the offer that we give to Kanter would be beat by several other teams. I think we're going to give him the same amount of money that other teams would give, and the other teams are going to give him more minutes.
But wouldn't you rather have Baines?
Yes.
And he gets the minutes anyways.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. We'd only be able to give him like 8 minutes. That's what I'm saying.
I'd go Robin Lopez.
Yeah.
If I had a choice for the Celtics, I'd go for the defense and the rim protection and the rebound. I'd go there. The other one I see for the Celtics is Shelvin Mack because
he just got signed. That was the guy that I forgot.
Yeah, really, because he had the connection with Brad, and I didn't like what I've seen recently. As much as I think Wanamaker's a decent player,
I don't like.
I would like to try something else there when Kyrie is out.
Definitely.
How about Teodosic? I think that I don't know whether he's headed to Europe. I know that, right?
He's really interesting.
But
I
he
hope
might
he finds
be
a home.
guy because he shoots a three well.
Yeah, I hope he finds a home.
But
He could be
Celtics?
really interesting. I don't know, not necessarily. I was thinking more so the whatchamacallit. Jeremy Lin just got bought out as well, but he immediately went to the Raptors. And before he went to the Raptors, I thought Teodosic would have been an interesting piece to go to the Raptors.
So Lin went to the Raptors.
That's weird.
Yep. Whatchamacallit, Van Vliet just went down with a couple week injury.
That might be insurance for
How
Lowry and Van Vliet because they're both very injury
But how Lowry
Van Vliet's
plays
hurt
in the
right
playoffs, it's an insurance one. That's a pretty good pickup.
Lin will play good
I agree
alongside
with you.
Kawhi.
Out of these guys, I think I'm nervous about Markieff's injuries, and I'm nervous to pair a Morris with another Morris that I'm already growingly frustrated with.
It's completely different from the McCourty brothers for the Patriots.
Right. So I agree with you. Out of these options, Ellington was my number one, but he lost and he went to Detroit. I agree with you. I think the Robin Lopez type, even if we're only giving him 8 minutes a game, probably would be my target out of all these guys. It's just unfortunate. Similar to what I said about Kanter, I think that he's going to have offers for similar money and higher playing time on equal contenders. He's been linked to the Warriors in the past.
One match I heard for Lopez, which I never would have thought of, is the Bucks.
Yeah.
Where he plays the interior Lopez and the other guy plays the outside Lopez, and they actually are
Just put all the brothers together.
Yeah, spin them.
No, we got one Morris is enough.
Markieff and Marcus would probably just end up beating everybody up.
Do it. Bigger spin. 3 losers. Teams. All right. So my 3 teams that are big losers, I guess we can do one at a time again. The Lakers are an obvious one. I think we can just move past that. They didn't land Anthony Davis, and they made tertiary moves that weren't that big. I thought them losing Zubac was bad. Lakers loser.
Lakers loser.
Lakers loser. I think it's the number one loser.
Well, yes, that's why we're moving past it. There's a lot of other teams that I think finding winners was a lot easier, but finding losers was interesting. And I had a couple teams, and I think they go together. I have both the Bulls and the Wizards as losers. Even though they traded with each other, I think it was a lose-lose deal. I think the Otto Porter for Jabari Parker and Bobby Portis trade was a bad trade for both teams. Although the Chicago Bulls landed a small forward, which is a position that they've been struggling to find rotation minutes for, and they've been giving minutes to like Chandler Hutchinson, who's been terrible, and so they get Otto Porter. They do it at the cost of one of their young players that they could have signed probably at lower money than he would demand elsewhere in Bobby Portis, and at a flyer that was completely irrelevant in Jabari, and they completely handcuffed themselves to Otto Porter, who I believe is more of a $13, $14 million player rather than a $29 million player.
Otto Porter plays a lot like Justin Holiday, and they sent Justin
Exactly,
Holiday packing 2 months ago.
Yes. So they continually are making bad decisions, and they also paired a second round pick that's probably going to be a highly valued second round pick in the long distant future. I just thought that was a bad deal. And then on the flip side, the Wizards, that deal was poor because I think they're going to get tied into overpaying Bobby Portis in the coming season. They might overpay Jabari Parker as well, but then their second deal was they traded Markieff Morris and a second round pick for Wesley Johnson. And it's just like they needed to give away assets to get off of Markieff Morris. Both of these teams, they seem to just be digging themselves deeper and deeper into the basement, and I do not trust them moving forward to make any semblance of a playoff caliber team.
I don't know if there's a team other than them and maybe the Knicks that are so positioned so poorly.
Oh, they're terrible.
They're just in such a
Their
bad
future
spot.
is bleak.
How do you get out of that?
bleak.
With the Wall-Beal deal.
Oh, and you've got to feel so bad for John Wall. He's got his one injury.
I don't
and
know.
he
I
fell
feel
in his
worse for
home
Brad Beal.
Well, yeah, that's reasonable. That's reasonable. I feel bad for both of them.
Yeah. Anyways, my team was that I think took a hit as the Celtics because it's the way the other teams improved, and the other teams all have got distinctive improvement, I think, and the Celtics staying pat hurts them. And the other thing I think that hurts them is that not with Anthony Davis not going to the Lakers, it changes the dynamic on that team enough with Tatum and Brown, especially, that they got to be thinking that this is. Their game plan with the Celtics is not the same as it would have been if Anthony Davis went to the Lakers. And
I'm
I think
assuming
that
you
hurts
also have the
too.
Celtics as a loser.
See, I do, but I also don't. So I think anytime we evaluate trades and trade deadlines at this point, we have to think about short-term and long-term. And I don't think there was anybody that short-term could have made this team into an obvious favorite for the finals or, championship contention. So I think, given what we talked about last week, that AD is going to be available at the end of the season, why give up assets if you're still in the running? And, who's to say adding a player right now is going to really
I think
help
in the
that
short
much?
term, the only player, and I agree, if you look at it in the scope of before the trade deadline, were probably in neck and neck with Milwaukee, I would say, to get to the finals in terms of likelihood, with the Raptors being just as likely as us and then the Sixers being a little bit lower. And then depending on how you look at it now, we might be fourth. And that is a loss. But overall, if you consider that these three teams are competing to see who loses in 5 games to the Golden State Warriors,
I don't agree.
and that if the only way that the
You watched
Warriors
the game last night?
the only way the Warriors are losing is if Steph Curry gets hurt. And I just think that the Eastern Conference, for us to be able to upgrade to the degree that if we could get to the NBA Finals, to be able to get a victory, I think it's more congruent to the growth of a Gordon Hayward than to the upgrade that we would make, which would only be Terry Rozier and a pick probably to upgrade somewhere. That's the only move that would have happened.
Yeah.
I think Terry Rozier would have been the only piece that we would have moved.
I agree with
and
all
to
that.
upgrade him, update our roster, we would
with all
needed to package a pick with Terry to get a bigger roster spot. And I think, to what Sloan said, that would be to detriment of our future, packaging a pick that could potentially, even if it was our own first, that one separating factor could be the separating factor in the Anthony Davis deal come July. So I think this deadline was a win in the short term and a win in the long term, even though we got worse than, in comparatively, to the 3 teams around us.
I think you probably would have gotten better with Vucevic, but trading Terry and a pick for somebody who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year
That's what
anyway,
I'm saying.
it just didn't make sense. So
And plus you need Terry because Wanamaker's not the answer at point guard.
and Terry's actually played pretty well lately.
When Kyrie doesn't play, he plays well.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Tomorrow's a big
he's
game.
gotten aggressive.
I mean, tomorrow's a big game with Kyrie out and
Kyrie's
Terry getting
out.
to do it again with everything that's going on.
Any losers teams?
I mean, obviously the Knicks,
Yes.
which we already kind of touched on. it's just a nowhere nothing franchise right now, and they're banking on things happening when things, in recent history have not happened for them. As far as big names going there.
On their email for season ticket holders to re-up for the following season, they showed a picture of Mitchell Robinson driving to the hoop, and there was only 2 players in the photo, and it was Mitchell Robinson he was being guarded by. Can you guess who he was being guarded by?
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant was on their main slip selling season tickets.
Oh,
they took it down.
Embiid for the Sixers used to say, trust the process. The Knicks are probably saying, please don't lose faith.
Exactly right. They're going to spin it. I don't think they were as big as a loser as others, but definitely a loser.
Let's go to winner teams.
All right, teams that were winners.
I'll follow. I'll go. Go ahead. If you want me to go
No,
first,
you
I'll
go first. Go for
Well,
it. You're
I-
excited.
go.
You got a big winner.
I mentioned to say I think you're wrong about the Bucks. And what I see about the Bucks right now,
Bucks are
is
my number 1 winner.
Yeah, but I think they can beat Golden State. Because what I see happening
They've
there
never
is
even won a-
I see a style of play developing on that team that is different than everybody else and fits them like a glove. So the way they're playing, and even having Mirotic only helps it, the way they pull Lopez out shooting all those threes, the advancement of Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon
played
plays
great.
a nice
played
game.
great.
The advancement of how Bledsoe was playing
played
that,
great as well.
add Middleton to that, and and what Budenholzer, but their style of play and the way they've got the Giannis playing inside that team right now, I think is really potent. I think they're really
I think they can win it all too.
They're
So,
synergy.
I think they're a challenge.
Out of
I
all the
think that
teams in the
style
East,
of
they
play
have-
is gonna be a
They're
challenge.
built to beat the Warriors.
They're number 2. They're
They're
number
not-
2. They're number 2. They're the second best
They're
team.
not just built to win the Eastern
So I
Conference.
think they won with Mirotic.
They have the
I think
DNA.
it's obvious that from from Giannis down to all their players, and especially with the addition of Nikola Mirotic, including Budenholzer at the helm, their synergy in terms of their roster for what their goal is going into the game, for what everyone's roles are, for what the expectations from each player, and from what their consistency in terms of the output
That's
is.
what I'm seeing.
It's remarkable. Their team is really good. It's a well-oiled machine. Their efficiency matches some of the better teams of all time. They're like top 10 in terms of certain offense rating metrics. They look the part. Like all the stats and all these things, it matches what you're seeing on the screen. I agree, they're a definite winner. Their addition of Mirotic versus the other 2 additions, we spoke a little bit on Gasol, and then the other large addition of Tobias Harris to Philadelphia. Obviously, Mirotic is the worst player of those 3 additions to these top teams, but I think it's obvious that he is the best add out of the other 2. Whereas I already touched on with Gasol, there's going to have to be some tinkering in there for making sure that he meshes well. I think the stat that was really tossed around with beat writers in Toronto after Marc Gasol went there was like they're last in the league in starting a possession from the post touch, and Marc Gasol is great at that. And what's different in adding someone who has a skill that your team doesn't have versus what's different in adding someone who has a style that your team doesn't have is one is easy and one implements and one meshes in easy, like rebounding. If you're bad at rebounding and you bring in a good rebounder, you're going to get better at rebounding.
Hey, Davis.
But having a passer from the post, if you bring in a good passer from the post, it doesn't mean your team is going to be more efficient offensively because you're going to have a newer place to start your offense. It just means you're going to have to change the machinations around to work that guy's play sets in. And yes, maybe that'll work, but I think that's going to be more dependent on Nurse being able to milk those guys together rather than Gasol. Whereas what we're saying right now with Mirotic, he plays the way he plays, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yep. And he looks there beautiful. My other winner, big winner, was the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah.
So the Clippers.
That's odd that they end up being a winner in this. Is it just because of how well they played against the Celtics? You think
No,
everyone
no.
would have said
It's
that if they
because
didn't
of
play
their
well that
asset
game?
accumulation. So they
People
dumped.
want to go there.
Asset accumulation.
They dumped Tobias Harris, who was not returning, and Avery Bradley, who was one of the most damaging starters in the entire NBA so far this season. Boban, who's a fan favorite but only plays 10 minutes a game. And Mike Scott, who is going to end up being probably a serviceable rotation bench player for the Philadelphia 76ers. They got back a slew of players. They got back Garrett Temple, who's commonly regarded as being one of the best bench, best locker room players, future coach in the league. They got back JaMychal Green, who's a great bench big. They got back Landry Shamet, who, as we saw, is a human flamethrower.
One of the nicest shooters I've seen.
His form is
What a
so pure.
beautiful
It's
shot.
beautiful. There's so many swishes, and he looks like he is far and far beyond Jerome Robinson, who they clearly were hoping would be a Landry Shamet type of player, and he isn't. So I think Shamet They're making up for Robinson, who might be a little bit further down the line than they were expecting when they drafted him at 13 in the last year's draft. So I think Shamet slots in awesome. They got Wilson Chandler, but they're probably not going to use him. And then they landed Zubac for just getting rid of nobody.
They replaced Martin Gortat with Zubac.
And Zubac is 21 years old, and he's showing great promise as a guy with nice touch around the rim, as a good rebounder, as an okay standstill rim protector. He's not great, and he obviously has his foils
smart.
as a player, but he's good.
Too.
And if that was it, if they just traded those 4 guys for those 5 guys, that would be a win. But then they landed 2 second-round picks from Detroit that are going to be in stronger drafts when Detroit is probably going to be terrible. And they got a lottery-protected pick that's going to turn into a couple seconds from Philadelphia that they're probably going to land. And then the crown jewel is the 2021 first-round pick, unprotected pick from the Miami Heat, who right now are in cap hell, and they're very unlikely that they're going to get out from underneath their rock. I think this is a no-brainer. Swing for the fences. They now have 2 open max spots, similar to the Knicks, but they're much more appealing to the Knicks because not only do they have all these assets, the allure of LA, but they also have strong management and strong advisors in Jerry West and
Are
the
we going
other
to lose
people
that
there.
pick?
Yes, they're going to get this pick. They're going to pick this year.
Okay.
They're not going to make the playoffs.
I would add to that, a little bit of a tangent, but not right on the topic, is that third quarter that they played against the Celtics is the best defensive third quarter I've seen against the Celtics all year. The Clippers played against them. They were awesome.
That
They
third
took
quarter,
the
I
Celtics
think
completely out of their
that third
offense.
quarter
Celtics
said more
are
about the
one of
Celtics.
worst.
I don't know.
Celtics are one of the worst third quarter teams this year.
Well,
in the league.
Yeah, but that
The Clippers look
defensively,
great. One
they
of
were
your winners.
awesome in that.
One of your winners.
All right, so I was going to say Philly,
Yes.
because on paper Philly looks like the best, winner of the
they
deadline.
they look good so
They
far.
got one of the best starting 5s, but they've given up a lot of role players, and Butler and Harris are both question marks as far as long-term commitments. But I'm going to say the Sacramento Kings, because I think as much as we don't really like Harrison Barnes, I think he's a good addition to the team. He's a great locker room guy, and he's a good starting small forward for this team. And not only the addition of him, just the ability to add somebody at the deadline.
I agree.
The Kings haven't gotten somebody at a trade deadline in God knows how long. And it's just showing that the culture is changing a little bit in Sacramento, and they're actually going for a playoff spot.
I wish that the deals were flipped, and I wish that even though I strongly dislike Otto Porter, and I don't like Harrison Barnes, I wish they went to different destinations. Because I think if Otto Porter landed with the Sacramento Kings, his fit, similar to what we were just talking about with Mirotic, makes so much more sense. Otto Porter can move fast. He's not high usage. If he's catching it, he's shooting it, or he's passing it right back. He's a great defender that switches. Harrison Barnes, although it is important that he slots into that 3 slot that this team has been playing Justin Jackson or Bogdanovich, who was a 2, he's a ball stopper. And his assist rate is abnormally low. His defense is subpar, and his offense is a black hole, low efficiency offense.
He could be a solid scorer if he's not asked to be their number 1 or 2, though, and he's not going to.
The fit so far hasn't looked bad.
He and Alec Burks can knock down shots.
The
I
team
think he fits that
upgraded.
team better than he fit Dallas.
Absolutely.
So for that, but do they take either one of those 2 guys? Do they take any minutes away from Bagley?
No. I mean,
okay, if they don't, then
because
I'm not
what
happy
I'm
with
seeing now is that Bagley is where formerly he was slotted at only the 4. Now he's starting to get minutes at the 5, and I think in the minutes where he's starting to get minutes at the 5, I think those will be the minutes, if any, that Harrison Barnes gets minutes at the 4. It's an upgrade. They're a winner. It's just,
don't get me wrong.
It's a very minimal win.
I really don't like Harrison Barnes.
No.
And I think the bigger winner in that whole thing is Dallas.
Absolutely.
Getting rid of Harrison Barnes.
Absolutely, 100%.
And Dallas has improved like
KP,
80% since 2 months ago.
They got cap space too.
And Tim Hardaway's played really well.
He's played great. Like we said, he's a good
Dallas is
They're
really
one
on
of
the
my
right
winners.
track. I would give Dallas an
I'll give him a win.
A.
Yeah, the Sixers are definitely one of my winners. I was much more confident with how Tobias Harris was going to look at the court with players like Embiid and Ben Simmons than I was with Jimmy Butler, even though Jimmy Butler is obviously the far superior player. It's clear from what we've seen so far in the 2 games that Harris is meshing in perfectly. Him off ball and what he's doing for J.J. Redick. J.J. Redick is one of my 3 winners. J.J. Redick is shooting 100% true shooting percentage. Not 100% from the field, 100% true shooting percentage with Tobias Harris on the floor since he's gotten there, which is
He's hit every
blasphemous.
shot?
No, it's true shooting percentage. So it's your shot combined, your field goal percentage weighted to include 3-point percentage and free throw percentage.
Just because they got another shooter out there, they
Just
got to
the
play?
extra spacing that needs that much more attention
I love Redick.
has been making Redick, his space that he's gotten and his ability for him to catch fire using that space and then to hit crazy shots out after building that momentum is something he wasn't able to do as frequently as, I mean, it's just 2 games, but he looks fantastic. And this lineup is really, really dynamic, and they dominated the Lakers. And the Lakers played a really, really strong game for 3/4 of that basketball game.
Elton Brand is developing that team like a manager in a franchise in 2K19.
He's doing a good job.
In a
I
video
still
game.
don't trust Brett Brown.
So
I
just don't think Brett
I
Brown.
don't trust Jimmy Butler,
So,
and I think
true,
there's a
but
lot of ball-dominant players on this team now, and I don't know if long-term there's going to be much synergy or chemistry among these alphas.
Tobias Harris is actually one of the lowest usage stars in the league. He's the lowest usage in terms of 20-point per game scores that the league has, and he gets his shots efficiently. And he's close to 50, 40, 90 already. And I think he meshes like a glove. And I think he's a good security blanket in case they decide they don't want to go and sign Jimmy Butler for the long term.
Yeah,
even though they have said that they're going to try to retain both, I think it's like I would bet a lot of money that they do retain Tobias Harris long term, and that they probably, but I would be less certain of Jimmy Butler, and I think that that's a good sign for them. And additionally, to speak on their depth, something that was an issue, if you actually look back in terms of the players that they landed at this deadline, they bolstered areas of their bench that formerly they didn't have. They formerly had an onslaught of random shooters, whether it was Shamet or just random dudes on their bench. And now they have strong wings that have two-way potential. They have the Jonathan Simmons. He hasn't had a strong year, but into that archetype, Mike Scott's going to play good basketball for them. I love Boban, that pickup for them.
James Ennis, great defender.
James Ennis, that's
Yeah.
right. That's 4 guys that really bolsters their depth that formerly was a huge issue. And when you get down to you only need one of those guys to show up in the playoffs, and that's the guy you hatch your wagon to, and that's who you play for that game if you're only doing 8 men. And I think that either Mike Scott, James Ennis, Boban, or whoever you have, one of those guys can show up in a playoff game and make it.
Bob Ryan wrote a real nice article this one weekend, and it was on how much we got to look forward to with that Philly-Boston rivalry. Yes. And then I am really excited to see those two teams meet in the playoffs.
I hope they do. I don't
after
know.
what we saw last year and everything.
I really like Ennis. He's an underrated off-the-bench defender.
Yep.
And they're built to take on the Warriors too.
Yep.
Because they've got players that can defend not only Durant but
Buttonholes
also
versus
Klay
Brown.
Thompson.
You are right. Brett Brown is the worst coach out of those 4 teams. So the 4 top teams, Brett Brown's the worst
I
coach.
can't even listen to him. I hate that accent.
What is it, like New Hampshire and Boston combined?
Maine.
It's Maine, I
Yeah, but
guess.
It kind
Maine.
of
But
sounds like Boston.
It's
too.
like somebody trying to in a movie.
Personally, I love the guy.
It's
I
like
just don't
somebody.
think that-
other winners
It's like a
without
bad
explanation?
actor doing a Boston
No
accent.
explanation.
No, we
winners.
did them all. We did them all.
I included the Warriors and the Cavs as winners as well, just because the Warriors, because no one else made moves, and the Cavs got a couple second-round picks out of doing nothing.
Why are people valuing second-round picks? I mean,
Because it's a swing.
what's so good about it?
I don't know. Ask Nikola Jokic. Ask Rashard Lewis. I don't know.
Yeah, so you get lucky.
Ask,
Rashard Lewis. See if I get lucky.
We got the crybaby Kevin Durant.
Oh,
All right,
geez,
so
shut up already.
Kevin Durant went through 9 games.
Will you grow
9
up?
days, exactly. He went through 9 days of
you.
avoiding the media, not talking to the media, very blatantly avoiding, dodging, and even at times running out of locker rooms and facilities to avoid talking to the media, right bracketed around the trade deadline, and it started with when the Kristaps Porzingis trade happened, because that stirred speculation that they knew something, or they were hoping that they were going to land Kevin Durant. Finally, when he comes and he does his press availability, he comes in, you can tell right off the bat that he's going to be super sour, even though it was right after a game
He
where
broke the silence to rip the media.
Right,
he broke his
exactly,
media silence to rip the media.
He dropped 39 points. It was a great win. He played fantastic.
Playing really well.
And it continues to follow that. On the court, he is one of the most probably beloved. On the court, you're just talking about in terms of what fans' respect is for a basketball player. He is all-time remarkable. He's going to go down as probably one of the best 7 best players of all time when it's all said and done.
I'm seeing a lot of him
and
now.
It's just
he's
so unfortunate that his off-the-court antics continue to bring him so far down. So he comes out and he's just throwing shade at media left and right, saying things like, I don't trust none of y'all, why do you care, all the things that you do are unnecessary, you guys are a bunch of liars, and he's saying that you're just channeling it for a headline, you're all out there for yourselves, and they're calling the media selfish, and it all spurned off of, I don't know whether he read Ethan Strauss's, and he called Ethan Strauss out by name, who's a fantastic writer, one of the best writers that basketball landscape has. He writes for The Athletic. He's a really, really good writer, and he's based in the Bay Area. He has beat access to the Warriors, so he's in that locker room, in that stadium a lot. So he wrote an article headlining talking about Kevin Durant's likelihood to be going to the Knicks based off of what he's hearing from insiders in the league. And he has quotes in it as follows. The 3 quotes where he quotes either insiders or sources in the league, so the only parts of his article that aren't his own opinion or just speculative conjecture based off of what he's hearing, are these 2 quotes, which are, sources say teammates would understand if KD left what would looks like perfection. That's quote 1. Insiders around the league think Kevin Durant is leaving the Warriors for the Knicks. That's quote 2. And then quote 3, which I think is probably the quote that might have ticked Durant off most out of all of these, is sources say that Durant believed his besting of LeBron James in the 2017 finals would get him hailed as the game's top player, a mantle he's craved for some time. And Durant, I don't know whether he read the article or whether he just heard about the article and read through all the comments of people just throwing sludge at him, because that's what he does. He feeds into this. He pours salt on his own wounds, and he does. And Ethan Strauss, you try to think of ways to describe Durant, and all you have to do is go read Ethan Strauss's articles in terms of the way that he's handling a situation, and in terms of how he's framing this free agency that he's is so annoyed by, in terms of how he's just escalating it. Ethan Strauss says he's shining a laser pointer at July calendar page and is bemoaning that anyone dares to see the bouncing beam. And it's just like everything he's doing is just amplifying the free agency. And there's so many different paths that you can take to just brush it off. You can say, we have a great team right now. I'm focused on winning a championship, 3 straight. Maybe I'll win a 3rd finals MVP. You can say whatever you want. I don't know what I'm going to decide yet. Even if you do know what you're going to decide, just say you don't. I don't know what I'm going to decide yet. I'll think about free agency when it's time to think about free agency. I won't be answering any more questions about it from here on until it's time to talk about free agency. And you know what's going to happen? The media is going to ask you questions about the game. They're going to ask you questions about basketball. They're going to ask you questions about DeMarcus Cousins. They're going to ask you questions about Draymond Green. They're not going to ask you questions after that. And he's such a mental midget, and his skin is so parcel thin. It's infuriating to watch him talk, and he is so cruel with how he approaches it.
How is he ever going to make it in New York?
I don't know.
And
They'll
the
rip him to
exposure
shreds.
with the lights on him, how are they ever going to make it in New York? I don't know how that. And
I don't know.
connected to
David
that
Price
is
won a World
that
Series.
Golden State is a perfect match for him.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
he needs Steph. He needs Draymond Green. I watched the whole game last night. It was a really nice game to watch because Miami was really taking it to him. And actually, if it wasn't for the double dribble, which I'm sure you saw, they'd be in overtime and they probably would have won that game.
D-Wade
But he had an interesting exchange with the fans that was so positive. If you saw that, it was after he had to hit a clutch shot and everything. And the fans in that front row, the whole row of them, about 10 or 15 of them, were all like, yeah, KD. And he went over and he was giving them bumps and high fives right down the line. And even when he went back on the court, he turned back around to the fans and is pointing at them, joking with all the fans. And it seems so real, his connection with those people. I will also add this, that I really think that he is going to break into the top 5 of all time. I think that combination of his mid-range game, his outside game, and his transition game, bar none, is the best I've ever seen. That combination, outside game, the 3, the mid-range game, and the transition game is the best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so what's not to like on the court of that guy?
Yeah, it's funny. I just love watching him. He's like poetry in motion on the floor.
When he
But
goes for a floater, he's so far
But his
above
temper
everybody.
tantrums just make me hate him as a person. And it's so funny, the irony of him going on Get Up this morning on ESPN and saying, with the media, I just want to talk about sports and not about business. It's ironic because apparently he's going on a media tour right now for his upcoming show, The Boardroom, which is going to be about the business side of sports.
Have you watched the 2 episodes? There's 2 episodes.
No.
It's a pretty good show. Episode 1 was about sneakers.
Oh, I didn't even know they were out yet.
And the development of like sneakers in terms of the marketplace for contracts and signature shoe deals. He had PJ Tucker, league sneaker king. He had his agent Rich Kleiman, and potential future owner of the New York Knicks is always on. And then who was the 4th person? Kyle Kuzma. And it's hosted by Jay Williams, who's an unusual choice. But it was a good discussion, and they talked about their nostalgia in terms of kicks.
But how ironic is it that he's a big part of this?
Episode 2 is NBA ownership.
Exactly.
And it has 4 NBA owners on, and you can just tell that the entire discussion is just hanging on the air around Rich Kleiman, who's one of the 4 people at this table, because it's Ballmer, it was Kroenke, and it was one of the people from the Warriors. I forget who it was. But you can just tell all 3 of these guys are talking to Kleiman, knowing that it's just Kleiman and Durant. and they want to be a part of management, and they want to be part of management while Durant is playing, and he is circulating the media landscape with so much information in so many different areas that don't include basketball. For him to say, I only want to talk about basketball, and then to go and use media to talk about so many different things outside of basketball is so frustrating. And it's fine. You can do that. Why not? But at least face it like up front for what it is. Approach it with an actual realistic mindset that'll be respected by the fan base. He doesn't have a grasp on what reality is.
His sport has never been as popular, arguably, as it's growing to be right now. And this is one of those sports where all of the players have fans on and off the court. You have people that want to know what they're doing in their everyday life through social media and stuff like that. You have to really capitalize on the fan interest and not alienate the fans by acting like a baby.
He's going to have a three-peat, and if he stayed, he may get the fourth. I don't see his mindset with not wanting to be where he is. And when you look at the difference, I see it. The difference between the two personalities of Kyrie and Steph. You want to be with Steph.
Yeah,
Kyrie is going to be hard compared to Steph Curry.
I think what the difference is, I think he is extremely, he's sensitive, obviously, and he cares about long-term image, and he cares about legacy, and he cares about things like that. And people,
I think he's got it.
I think that he doesn't like that he's on a team where no matter what happens, right now, Steph Curry is probably like the 8th best player all time right now. And I think Durant right now is probably like the 14th best player all time right now. And I think that the continued success of the Warriors, it's not going to ever, Kevin Durant is never going to move past Stephen Curry. It's just both of them are going to continue to move forward. And the furthest they're going to go is Steph Curry being 3 and Durant being 4. That's their absolute ceiling, and I don't think Durant likes that. I think he wants to be the best player ever, as obviously stated by people who are close to him that obviously heard him talk about this. I think that quote about him wanting to be considered greater than LeBron James, that was what he got mad at, and he got mad at Ethan Strauss saying Ethan Strauss making a bunch of statements like he talked to me, where clearly Ethan Strauss didn't talk to Kevin Durant, and maybe that's the one area where Strauss should have gotten that quote from Durant. But it's obvious the quote came from Durant. He's talking to people who talk to Durant. What do you mean?
Shay, tell me this, just quickly or whatever it is. What separates LeBron and KD?
Well, right now, nothing. They're right there. They're
That's what I'm
one
saying.
day.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, all time, LeBron's better.
What separates them all time? Why is
Career
LeBron?
success, career statistics, career
Once
dominance.
he gets the three-peat and goes forward.
But LeBron with the set of players that Kevin Durant
LeBron was never the second best player on his team.
Never.
LeBron was never the second best player of the team. Kevin Durant can never be the best player of all time, because if Kevin Durant's the best player of all time, that means he's the second best.
And
actually,
what
Steph
you would
Curry's the
hold
best player of
against
all
him
time.
is that he happened to play on a team that had a player better than him.
I don't know.
Regardless of how good he is,
Yeah.
he happened to play on a team.
Steph is better than
I
him.
wouldn't hold that against him.
I don't hold it against him,
know
it's just
if
Steph
Kevin
better.
Durant's going to win that championship with Cleveland a few years back.
No, definitely not.
I think LeBron did things that were superhuman there.
I think that he cares about it so much that I
Maybe.
think that
That's a good point.
he's too in his own head, and he's too online. He's too focused about
Yeah,
what
could he
the nonsense people are saying. He's too focused about what Jimmy with a snapback and a BlackBerry is saying in Brooklyn to care enough to say, screw all that, I'm staying in Golden State. I'm going to win 3 more championships or whatever it is. He wants to say, oh, maybe if I bring back the Knicks and give them a championship, maybe that'll elevate me higher than Steph and LeBron. I think that's what his mindset is, and he's pairing that all with all types of potential tech advances and the fact that his agent may or may not be able to purchase the Knicks long term. I think he's...
And the risk of going to New York and striking out and having you go that way in your all time is
He's an
very
overthinker and
present.
he's oversensitive.
Yes, it's embarrassing.
What a great player.
If you could only watch him on the court.
What a great player.
And Zion Williamson. I don't have any notes on Zion. Zion's crazy. I watched I'm assuming you watched the whatchamacallit, Virginia game, obviously.
Yeah.
Countless other games. I'm thinking
The one team Virginia has trouble with.
I'm thinking he's going to enter the league as a top 35 player in the league.
Did you hear what Paul Pierce said?
What do you say?
Paul Pierce said of Zion Williamson that he is stronger and more physical than 98% of the players in the NBA today.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. He's going to enter the league
That's
as
staggering.
I think he's going to be like the 10th.
He's going to walk in there and be
10th, 11th strongest player in the league?
Better, only 2% of the NBA is going to be more physical and stronger than him at 20 years old.
I think that's modest. You could say he would enter the league and be the second strongest player in the league.
One of the great block shots I've ever seen.
That was the greatest block shot I've ever
And then
seen.
when you go and look up other ones, you see other ones and you say, maybe it wasn't the greatest one because I just didn't see that one. But he came from so far away. He came from the other side of the court. He was on the other side of the lane.
It was a
on
catch and
full
shoot.
sprint.
DeAndre Hunter
flying through the air like a raven banshee and just pinned that thing. It was the height at the peak of a jump shot to
and
get that thing.
Hunter has a pretty quick release. He has a nice shot.
He had plenty of time, so he measured his shot. He didn't think it was possible.
And shot it. And when he caught the ball, when he caught the pass, Zion was one step outside of the paint
on the other side. Just such a. I would say that game and the game was really interesting in a lot of ways. Is that Virginia did not play a bad game, and Virginia's game plan in that game was to Duke only shoots 31% from the three, and their game plan was to give it because the first game Zion and Barrett dominated them to the hoop. So Virginia said we're going to take that away. They took away the inside game and then watched them hit 13 out of their first 18 threes, which may open your mind up. If that wasn't an aberration, Duke. They had 61% of their threes. There's no way you're beating that team in that situation. Barrett hit 5 threes in a row. Reddish was hitting them. Really impressive performance by Duke, and Zion is king of that team. And I think UVA may be the second best team in the country. And I was telling Cassidy, who went to UVA, and we were talking about that the redeeming factor, I don't care about getting beat in these 2 games. I don't care about UVA needs to succeed in the NCAAs. And at the time I want to beat Duke, is in the Final Four. That's when I'm looking to beat them, and they may be unbeatable. They're a lot different than the previous Duke teams with these one and dones. I'll tell you that. And Trey Jones wasn't bad either.
It's probably to Virginia's benefit that they've played them twice, and
they'll play them again too.
I think they will play them again.
Zion is the best draft prospect since.
I think LeBron. I think he's making fair weather fans interested in college basketball. I think this March Madness is going to do great ratings because he's such a show in and of himself.
He's a player of the year.
Absolutely.
Right. He's got such bounce to his step.
I mean, on one dunk, I saw his hand almost near the top of the backboard. It's like the backboard's not big enough for him.
He's also got very, very quick feet. He's almost got like dancer's feet that are real light and feathery, which for a guy that size is freakish.
I work at a hotel, and we have all different kinds of people. Yeah. I mean, I'm in the cafeteria watching the first game against Virginia, and a woman from Banquets comes in. She goes, "Oh my goodness, who is that guy?" Right. And it's like she's like, "I don't even watch basketball, but I can tell he is amazing."
Well, they said at UVA on Saturday, it was game day at UVA, and they camped out like Krzyzewskiville the night before, but it was Zion that made the difference. And they had almost 200 people around him everywhere he went. They were just a flock of people just gravitating around wherever he went, this side of the court over to that side of the court, that were just moving to be in his presence, so to speak. Really pretty impressive.
I hope he's mentally and emotionally a bigger person than Kevin Durant.
He clearly is. I think his ceiling is an offensive hub akin to a Giannis or a Ben Simmons, where he can be a ball-handling point forward while simultaneously being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And I think that he could go down if he goes into the right situation, if he's surrounded by the right pieces, and he's surrounded by the right framework, and he has good management. So don't go to the Bulls. Don't go to this.
Yeah,
I think
those are the teams that are.
I think he could be a top 10 player ever if he went to a
but
good
he's going
team.
to start in a bad spot.
I'm saying he could go to the Bulls and he could still be an all-star, multiple-time all-star. I think if he goes to, I don't even know, the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns change out their owner and get a new owner, and they have a new owner that's a good owner, or if he goes to, I don't know, if he goes somewhere that has good coaching, good management, and what have you, I think he could be a top 10 player ever.
I look at the Celtics. We'll not get to too much more on the show. I look at the Celtics and I say, why don't you use your assets to get Zion, or why don't you use your Why don't you look to sign Durant instead of trading your whole team to go get?
Let's transition to the Celtics. So the Boston Celtics are 35-21 now, and we obviously we're now in the stretch of our third blow up of the season, where it's now titled the No Phone blow up, where formerly there was so our season has been broken down by these 3 blow ups. So we started with a rocky 10-10, and that was just because we figured things out. A lot of pieces. Hayward wasn't where we were expecting him immediately. Blah 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 blah. Then all of a sudden we start firing all hinges. We look great. 8-0 stretch. We look great. And then we have an 0-3. 0-3. There's a team meeting, and we patch things up. Everything's good again. 7-2 run. We're looking great. I think that's the stretch where we have like maybe 8 of those 9 games. We had over 32 assists or something like that. I believe that was that stretch. And then we have the Brooklyn-Orlando stretch where Jalen gets pushed by Mook, and Kyrie complains at the end of the game in the Orlando game because he didn't get the final shot.
And then Jalen.
And then so all that, blah, blah, blah.
Drama.
And then we refigure it out again. So we go 10-1, and then now we have the trade deadline, and then LA, back-to-back. We get blown out by the whatchamacallit.
The Lakers catches when we're up by 18.
Right, yeah. And
they hit every 3 in the book. Kuzma hits 5 in a row.
I was going to say we were blowing out the Clippers, and then they fought back.
83-44.
And they beat us. I think that the Clippers game was a more embarrassing loss, and I think it obviously was a detriment to the team that Kyrie Irving wasn't there and that our offense couldn't thrive without him. Both games showed obvious weaknesses, and you touched on it, on our just miserable third quarter offensive and at some points defensive plays. Sometimes our second quarters aren't that bad.
A lot of second quarters.
I mean,
it's proven.
That the Lakers game.
And Sloan's been saying third quarter for a long time, and he's right.
I thought that Laker game we played a good game, and I think that Laker game, the third quarter wasn't as bad as the third quarter against the Clippers. And the third quarter was them going on a run more so because
they gave
LeBron
up
James
42 points to the Lakers.
Yes,
42.
LeBron James lost his mind. He had 9 assists in the quarter. They were all incredible crisp passes.
Kuzma hit 5.
But
he was
also,
losing his mind.
out of timeouts, they're finding three-point shooters wide open. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kyle Kuzma were torching them. They were shooting 55% from 3, and yet they're getting open three-pointers out of timeouts. Brad Stevens needs to be held accountable after
I know you keep
after
saying
a terrible
that,
game like that.
I'm still saying Brad's got a handle, and I'm saying
I'm not apologizing for him anymore.
I think Brad's got a handle on this. I think he's going to be all right. And and I know there's a lot to say on this. Tommy Heinsohn's back. Nice to have him back for a long time. Yeah. And I always, his insight to me connects to anything that's ever gone on with the Celtics. And his brief insight here is that after that Clippers loss, a leader needs to step up in that locker room and say, what can I do to help this team? The leaders on that team aren't doing that. And I think that it might be a fine point, so that whether it's what they need to step up and say. And he said what that does is that connects everybody, and that gets everybody pulling in the same direction. And this team, when you see a great team, all those players are pulling in the right direction. When you see a college team, like I watch Virginia, every player on that team is pulling in the same direction. The Celtics don't have everybody pulling in the right direction, and I'm with them on that. I think that it needed Al Horford or Kyrie to stand up in that locker room and say, what can I, Kyrie, do to help out? What can I do to make this better? Instead of saying, the young players are hard to handle or whatever it is. And to turn the page on the drama, I would say, what can we do to fix this? And I think what I see that can be done, the statistics bear this out, that it's the second and third quarter, and that it's Morris and Horford that are playing very strong defense in the first quarter, but they're both playing statistically very bad defense in the second and third. I think Semi Ojeleye is going to play. And I think in the second quarter that you're going to see Semi Ojeleye and Baines out there instead of Morris and Horford. And in the third quarter, I'd like to see Hayward. I think Hayward's on the verge of turning the corner. I don't know whether he is defensively, but I see some things happening. There's more bouncing and stuff.
The Clippers game was one of the, I thought he looked the most aggressive.
Things are happening with him. But in the third quarter, but I would not play Morris and Horford anymore in the second and third quarter right now because they're playing so poorly. And what's odd is that in the second quarter it's the subs, the bench, and in the third quarter it's the starters.
Yeah, well, Morris
get
looks
Semi
frantic.
in there, play some defense, get Baines back, get Lopez in, play some defense. In the third quarter, play Jaylen Brown and Hayward instead of Morris and Horford. Make that change. You might see it.
Morris looks frantic right now to sort of shoot his way out of a little slump, and it's based on the fact that he was playing so well in the first half of the season. I don't want him forcing shots from 3. I also don't know why we're even giving the ball to Horford down low, posting him up, because he can't score on anybody who's even a good defender. Yeah. He has no post-up game at all anymore.
So I think it's clear to say that the Morris honeymoon is over, and I'm back to where I felt.
I don't agree with that.
Absolutely. I think that his strong play was predicated on his offensive efficiency. He's always been a nuisance defensively. He's always been a switchable defender, and that has never been my problem with him. It's been his foils offensively are to the detriment of the team, and his career averages are something like 42, 36, and 74. And that's that player that he has been represented across, I think he's been in the league 12 years, and that's been the player he is every year of his career. And for the first 50 games of this year, or the first 45, he was shooting 48, 40, and 90, which was remarkable, and I loved it. And he was playing awesome, and I loved him for it.
Well, he was shooting the smart shots.
Yes,
too.
exactly. He wasn't
shooting
taking
the
isolations.
open shots.
He was taking
wasn't
open
forcing.
threes. He was taking only
not a
isolation.
go-to scorer.
He was taking only isolation in late clock. Now you see heavy isolation. You're seeing shots early in the shot clock. You're seeing three-pointers up with 1-on-3, and he's taking it with 20 seconds left on shot clock. In the last 14 games, he's shooting 40, 29, and he's only averaging 10 points a game. He looks bad. He looks terrible, and it's at the detriment of the team offense.
You are definitely missing it, and I think Sloan's missing it too, is that this has got nothing to do about the offense. Their offense is relatively consistent.
It has. I
Jay,
disagree.
listen. It's the defensive end. It's the defensive end. This team has
What
got
do you
to step it
think?
up.
What do you think waxes and wanes with their effort defensively? Whether they're succeeding on the offense.
Here's what's not happening. You see the pick and roll defense against the Clippers?
What do
you
you
see them
think?
rolling to the middle
What's
and
wrong
dunking
with
on
it?
them?
Effort, right?
It's
Effort, right?
I'll even say, as much as I love Brad, I'll say it based on own personal experience that he may have made a mistake. I don't know. I'm speculating. In the preseason, that he didn't emphasize the defensive end in practice from day one. He might have let it slip and might have went offense instead of defense. And I'm saying, do you know the no pizza rule?
No pizza.
The no pizza rule. The no pizza rule is Dan McKee's. He got it from me first, but he turned into no pizza. Is that if you ever give up a layup on an inbounds pass or don't make an inbounds pass, I'm talking about fun on this team a little bit or whatever it is. But I think they've got to get a mindset that allows them to play defensively. And if it's that, man, you guys don't give up one pick and roll with a dunk on the other end on this, pizza at the end of the game, find the best. You guys don't give up a layup off an inbounds pass. They've got to emphasize the defensive end. They've got to get to where the defensive end is consistent and hard all the time, and it's not.
I agree with you 1,000%, and I think that what we see from this team specifically.
That's what ebbs and flows.
Specifically, our Waxer and Wayne are defenders, not Marcus Smart, not Marcus Morris, because those guys are consistent defenders, even though whatever stats you were showing were slacking in the other corners.
They're really bad.
These guys are consistent defenders no matter what is happening on the offensive end. What happens with Tatum, what happens with Jalen, what's happened with Gordon, what happens with Kyrie is the defensive effort isn't there if they're struggling offensively. They are hanging their heads, and this is where I do give some credit to Marcus Morris because he's showing light to the fact that the players are hanging their heads, and that's true. I don't like that he's saying that no one's having fun because in these stretches where they're 8-0, 7-2, 10-1, the team's having a lot of fun. They're jumping up and down on the bench. They're doing all types of fun handshakes. It's just in this 0-3, 0-3, 0-2 stretch that they panic.
Who are you to say that I want to be a what have you done? Was Phoenix that great for you? Was Detroit that great for you? You think you got a championship pedigree coming forward to this? I'm not listening to you about how to be a champion, and I like Marcus Morris.
I think there's so many contributing factors to why this is such a tumultuous season. There's so many things going on. Jalen is coming off of a 20-point-per-game average in the playoffs last year where he was a starter and now he's in a bench role. Gordon Hayward's coming off of a dramatic injury, and he's trying to work himself into a team back to where he was. We had Tatum who's taking a step back. We have Kyrie who has to become a leader, and he's struggling with that, and he has to be able to find a way to be the best player on the team, but to not sacrifice things that were happening last year that were successful. Same thing. There's so many factors
Good point
that are
made
different.
today on that. I think it was by Broussard. Is that his name? One of the
Chris
ESPN guys. And it was that at the end of last year when Tatum got done and Brown got done, what was everybody saying to them after they succeeded so well?
You're going to be stars. You're going to be stars.
Take the next step. Yeah. Take the next step. And then when they showed up,
they couldn't.
I haven't got a next step here.
Right.
What's the next step to the bench?
Right.
The next step is take less shots?
I agree.
Everybody in their head is saying.
It certainly hasn't been a joyful ride.
I think there's good stuff to come. I think Gordon Hayward is got. I like what's happening with him.
I think the frustration from the fan base.
I think Brad's going to do some things, and I think you're going to see some changes in the second and third quarter.
I think the frustration from the fan base and the frustration from certain players when they're short stints of bad games is completely overblown and way too dramatic. We have had way more successes this season based off of all of those tumultuous factors that I just laid out than we've had failures. When we are struggling, it's in very short stints where we have either injury concerns or just something doesn't go right for a short game. If Al Horford catches that rebound, that's a good win, even though that they got back into that game.
Right.
If it's just like I think that this team has more good going
Shay,
for it than bad.
3 of the next 5 games: Toronto, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia.
They're big
on the road.
Yes, they're
It's
big
on the
week.
road.
It's a big week.
That's going to tell a lot. And tomorrow night's without Kyrie.
I think that Gordon Hayward, the way that Hayward's minutes should be played is we should view his intensity
Start
early.
him in the third quarter.
Because in the games where he plays best is where he's intense early. When he comes in, he's lackadaisical, he's passing off.
I think
those are the games where he fails off in the end.
I think he's getting better physically.
I think he is too, but I
his
think
ankle's
in
healing.
games where he doesn't assert himself early, I think those should be the games where we wane his minutes down a little bit, play someone like Semi, Wayne Morris is down minute, and play someone like Semi, play other people more minutes. I think that we need to shake things
I
up.
think it's
in terms of the
Horford's
rotations a
knee
little bit.
that's keeping him from
of
playing.
time.
Plays good first quarter, and not after the first quarter, he doesn't play strong
All right,
defensively.
that's all. We're gonna have to see how we do against the Sixers tomorrow. That's all the time we have.
Happy
Until
All-Star
next
game.
time, All-Star
Wheels turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back and you can't